Let me tell you a story about Matt Durran. Matt is a craftsman. He's an artist who works in glass and exhibits right around the world. But this story isn't about his art. It's about science and how through his craftsmanship, Matt came to work on a world first in tissue engineering. A research team at London's Royal Free Hospital were looking at using tissue engineering to reconstruct facial organs. In this case, they were planning to make a human nose. To do this, they needed a bespoke and perfectly accurate mould. Glass was the perfect medium for this, but working with scientific glass makers, the problem was that the moulds kept failing. That was when they took a creative leap and decided to approach Matt. Their hunch was that as an artist, Matt would have a different approach to the material and just might have the solution. Working with casts of his own nose, Matt used glass slumping methods, experimenting over and over again until the results were perfect. The patient's cells were then mixed with a synthetic medium laid into the moulds to grow a scaffold on which the cartilage could grow. And once the nose was ready, it was attached to the patient's face. Perhaps you might think that's another act of craft. So those scientists' hunch was right. Matt, as a craftsman, did have a different approach to the material. And that was the skill that led to a life-changing, world-first surgery. Now, when I talk about craft, probably the forefront of science isn't the first thing that springs to mind, right? You probably think of something more like this, of someone sitting in a traditional workshop, working with traditional tools, making very beautiful things for a home or for a museum. And of course, craft is that. But it's also so much more. The innovation story I just told you about Matt Durran is one of many examples where makers are collaborating with experts in other fields to bring breakthroughs in environmental science, in healthcare, and in society. Let me show you how. Here is another unlikely collaboration, this time between an embroiderer and a robotics scientist. Artist Karina Thompson has worked with Dr. Matthew Howard of King's College London to develop a way of embroidering electrical sensors into clothing and garments. These sensors can pick up muscular activity, and those signals can then be used for health or sport applications. Dr. Howard is now working with researchers at the University of KwaZulu-Natal in South Africa to use these embroidered sensors to direct prosthetic hands for amputees. Again, a life-changing breakthrough. And what's special about these is because they're stitched by hand, they're much more affordable, more accessible, but most importantly, they're just as accurate as machine-made sensors. Now, craft is about materials, and now makers are using their material knowledge to address environmental challenges as well as health challenges. What if, instead of building furniture, we grew it? These lights are designed by a furniture maker based in London, Sebastian Cox. Sebastian is using mushroom mycelium to grow objects for domestic use and for furniture. Mycelium is the fast-growing vegetative part of a fungus. And as it grows, it forms tight networks of interconnected cells that can be used to bind waste materials of many different kinds. In Sebastian's case, this set of stools and lights are created using mycelium binding wood waste from his own woodland. Another maker who is using mycelium is Maurizio Montalti. Maurizio has been using mycelium for several years, and he's now looking at how it can be used for industrial production. But perhaps most intriguing is this project. These boots are made to be worn in Mars. Maurizio's idea here is that if you're an astronaut traveling through space, then you want to pack light, right? So rather than taking heavy objects that you need with you in the spaceship, perhaps you could take mushroom mycelium spores and then grow what you need on your journey. The boots are made with mycelium and human sweat. So we've talked about materials, we've talked about wood, we've talked about fabric, we've talked about mushroom mycelium, but craft is also about tools. And digital tools are now transforming how things are made, how they're manufactured, and indeed where they're made. This is Unmade. It's a collaboration between a knitwear specialist, a computer scientist, a physicist, and an architect. What they've devised is a way of customizing garments and clothing by the customer online, so that you can choose your own pattern, your own colours, you can adjust them until they're just right, but within the parameters set by the designer. Now, what this means is that it reduces the waste in the clothing industry right down. At the moment, as much as 30% of garments go straight to landfill. That's because brands and manufacturers can't predict what colours are going to be most fashionable and most popular. These clothes are only made on demand, and that reduces waste to nearly zero. Digital technology is also transforming the world of furniture. This is OpenDesk. OpenDesk is a platform that connects digital designs by international status designers around the world with local workshops also around the world. What this means is that you can download the file for your furniture, order it, and have it made at a workshop around the corner. So instead of shipping heavy timber or heavy furniture from continent to continent, you're just shipping digital files. And at the same time, OpenDesk is revitalizing local economies and local workshops. This is a trend we're seeing more and more in craft. We're seeing local making happening, which is creating local jobs. This is Granby Workshop in Liverpool. They make architectural ceramics, things like tiles or fireplaces. And they make them combining a spirit of craftsmanship with a spirit of curiosity, experimentation, and a bit of random chance. It grew out of a community-led regeneration project in the Granby Four Streets area of Liverpool. This area had been through absolutely years of dereliction, but resourceful residents banded together, secured 10 empty homes, and rebuilt them as affordable homes. And in the process, they made the products, trained and employed local people, and these products are now still made in Granby and sold around the world. They're just one example of a number of social enterprises based in craft that are helping people to turn their lives around. Here are three. The Employable Nation in Cape Town, South Africa, is helping long-term unemployed people get back on their feet through making. In Berlin, Kukula teaches refugees to make and sell furniture. And perhaps my favourite, Gal Gale in Glasgow, Scotland. Here, people who've been through and are recovering from long-term substance abuse are rebuilding their lives by building boats. When I talk of craft, people often think of something old-fashioned. They might imagine something like the heat of a clay kiln, or that you might smell the leather of a hand-stitched handbag. Or perhaps you might imagine, when I say craft, you might imagine hearing the rhythmic hammering of a knife being forged. And craft is, of course, all of these things. But it's not of the past. I would argue it's of the future. I invite you to think of craft as a mindset, as a way of thinking that combines ingenuity, problem solving, experimentation, of course, remarkable skill, deep empathy, and deep understanding of materials. As we've seen, when you combine those qualities with science, with technology, or with communities, then we have a revolution on our hands. Craft is about transformation, about transforming raw material into something of value. Right now, we're not valuing craft skills enough. In my own country, students at high school, the number of students studying art and design and technology has fallen by as much as 50% in 10 years. But if we take a leap and we revalue the intelligence that's there in our hands, then I would argue that just perhaps our future is in the making. Thank you.